Sierra, Hotel, India, Echo, Lima, Delta, Shield.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I'm joined by my buddy Myron.
Hey, folks. I'm over here at the studio trying to finish watching SummerSlam. Was that the longest pay-per-view ever?
You know, I would actually beg to differ, man. I know this sounds crazy. I know it was a long show, but I feel like it was paced extremely well.
Yes.
I didn't feel like it was as long. As this is going to sound crazy, it wasn't WrestleMania long. WrestleMania can seem way too long.
No, they did a great job getting that show in and out. Problem was there was just too much. And it's just too much wrestling. Too much wrestling.
Clap, 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 clap.
I sound like I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. We'll get there in a minute, but yeah, that's. But man, let's backpedal up and let's get started here because we got a whole lot of stuff to get through, and I mean a lot.
Content rich today.
The question I had, man, right out of the gate, everybody's talking about, all the stuff that happened this weekend. I had all my notes nice and prettied up. Then Raw happened, and I mean, Is there anything hotter right now than in the last 24 hours? Well, it's not even 24 hours, guys. We're totally going to blow up, the behind the scenes stuff here. We are having to record before SmackDown, literally early. I've got to go out of town. I'm going down to Florida. So we just kind of want a full disclosure. Everybody's going to ask me about SmackDown, and I'm saying, guys, we had to do it beforehand. My dad's been sick for a while, and I got to go down to Florida to see him for some stuff. So the Raw happens, and we get the reformation of the Shield.
Yes.
What's your thoughts?
I mean, everybody's excited about that, except for really me. I don't really care. But everybody loves that. Everybody goes nuts when the Shield reforms, and they would have been fools not to reform them if you've got all three guys in one place.
Healthy. We're going to backpedal up even further because I'm going to go on a rant for a second. The Shield's back together. The crowd goes nuts. Everybody's going crazy. And if you didn't see it, I guess we probably need to tell everybody. I mean, obviously everybody knows how it happened, right? Roman comes out at the beginning of Raw. The crowd goes nuts booing him, chanting, "You still suck." Everybody's so sick and tired of he's being shoved down their throats. Everybody hates Roman. It's kind of like Chris, the old Chris Rock TV show. Everybody hates Chris.
Yes.
Everybody hates Roman, right? Not so much. Obviously he's got a lot of fans, real big, everybody says, oh, it's the women and the kids who like him. That's why all the screams are higher pitched than, all the boos are deep because it's all the men. Well, 2.5 hours later, because Roman says he's going to be a fighting champion and he's going to give Finn Balor his rematch he never got after he had to relinquish that title, which is true, by the way. Mm-hmm. So they're going out of their way to convince us that Roman is the anti-Brock. He's going to be there every week. He's going to defend that title, and he's even going to give it to somebody who has been completely passed over and, taken out of the picture that all of the diehard wrestling fans claim should be, one of the champions. He's one of the 32 people they think should be champion. Right?
At all times.
At all times.
You deserve it.
Yeah. There's never a minimum. I always say there's always 10 people the internet thinks should be world champion, simultaneously over the guy that is currently the champion.
Yes.
So the irony is that they have this match, Braun Strowman, and I'm trying to get through as fast as I can, man. Sorry. Braun Strowman tells Finn, he's not doing it, behind their back. He's doing it basically what happened at SummerSlam, which we'll get into in a second because this is bigger than SummerSlam in my opinion. That he's going to cash in tonight when this match is over. Regardless, he's telling both of them. Well, Roman gets the win over Finn, so fanboys unite and hate again. Everybody's mad that Roman's the winner. Braun says he's going to cash in. He starts climbing in. He's whatever. Fans go crazy. Everybody loves it. Roman's about to be dethroned. They're going to take the belt off of him. Blah, 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 blah. Cue the music you heard and the intro coming in. The Shield music hits. Out comes Seth Rollins in full riot gear. Here comes Dean Ambrose. Oh my God, the Shield is back. And they go out of their way. They protect, Roman. They basically just decimate Braun. And the crowd goes nuts and everybody's happy. Everybody loves Roman 2.5 hours after he sucks.
Yeah, you're in, man. It's a whole different story. Because you put him with Seth and Dean.
So
the magic of Seth.
I will ask you, and this is where I wanted to get your opinion on it right out of the gate. I put a tweet out on Twitter at TappedOutNick. That's my Twitter. So the question became, if Roman sucks and he's shoved down your throats and nobody wants him, you can't really cheer for him 2.5 hours later, can you? And talk about how great it is that he's with the Shield, right? Because he would still suck.
I agree with you 100%. He still sucks. And I'm not saying he sucks. Let me rephrase this. Okay. The people are still saying he sucks. And then all of a sudden they like him again, which I don't understand. He's still the same guy. Are we all of a sudden going to change our opinion on him just because he's in this little group that people love? Do you love the group? Do you love the guy? If you didn't like somebody in the Four Horsemen, did you not like all of the Horsemen?
Well,
I don't know.
Here's my question though. The fans, you're diehard, internet, smarts. And I'm not disparaging them in the sense of the word either, because we all are that guy to some degree, right? But the ones that, the Roman haters of the world, if you can go back in our catalog for a couple years now, we never disliked Roman.
No.
The people that chanted, "You can't wrestle," that said he can't have a great match, he's terrible, he sucks. I always sit there and say, okay, I tweeted out, the bandwagon, the Roman Reigns bandwagon's about to get a whole lot bigger now that the Shield's back together.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think that you can go, and by the way, I think every athlete, director of a movie, or something, can prove Twitter doesn't go away. People can come back through your Twitter history and see the hate that you had for Roman.
If it's there, it's live.
Yeah, you can't. You can go back and try to delete out all your Twitter feed where you Roman hate.
Yeah,
but you don't. And again, you just can't jump from one side to the other just because now he's with the group. If you said he couldn't wrestle, he didn't learn how to wrestle all of a sudden because he joined this group again.
He sure as hell didn't learn from Dean or.
Yeah, and that's the killer of this whole angle is. To me, and I don't lose sleep over this, by the way, people. Everybody says, I see this Twitter hate. It was awful. Last night, between SummerSlam and Raw, to see the flip of people that hated Roman to now it's awesome because he's back with the Shield. And then even there were people that still are making an excuse of like, well, they only put him with the Shield, so, now they'll cheer for, people will cheer for him. Isn't that what they're supposed to do? If that's, I brought this to you. I had asked you before we started recording. Maybe all along, this is what Vince has wanted for 2 years.
Vince has been around forever. Who's saying he can give an idea up till he sees it the way he wants it?
Think about it. This is the first time. I know we got that little tease last year. The Shield was getting back together. They had the match, but then Dean got hurt again. Well, before that, maybe, Rollins had gotten hurt back in, I think it was 2015 in December. He missed the whole beginning of 2016. Mm-hmm. Dean missed a chunk, obviously, of 2018. They were going to try to get there. Maybe this is what Vince has wanted all along.
Very likely, in my opinion. I would have to say, I would agree with you. How are you going to argue with those? It happens every time he gets chance. He makes it happen. So this is Vince's program. This is what he wants to do. And
let's be blunt. If this is what he wanted, it worked. Because the crowd gave the reaction, the hell of a reaction they wanted. And by the way, that was in New York. In Brooklyn.
Yep. And now, I think you got to remember, this is a crowd that hijacked their match last night. Sunday night. This is the crowd that does something every time they don't like something, or every time it's not going to suit them, they act up and draw the attention of the wrestling. And they liked it last night when Roman got over with the Shield. Not Roman by himself, Roman with the Shield.
And it was funny, somebody DM'd me on Twitter, I'm not going to give their name out, and they, well, that's because Roman had to, they had to put Roman with the Shield to get him over. Okay, that ain't the first time this has happened in wrestling. And now, if you just admitted to me that he's over, Vince won.
Yeah. Vince wins every time.
Well, no,
people can't figure this shit out, that he owns this stuff, and he actually manipulates us into liking what he wants us to like. That's just the way it is. Just enjoy it for what it is. It's wrestling. It's not brain science. I don't lose sleep over wrestling. I fell asleep during wrestling. But I'm not losing sleep over this. I love it. I really love wrestling. I watch it pretty much at least daily. I watch something wrestling oriented every day. But I'm not losing sleep over it. Because it's wrestling, for Christ's sakes, folks. Just enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Don't argue. Oh, Roman's the Shield, and Roman's just got he gonna protect him from Braun Strowman, and Braun Strowman could. Okay,
there you led me to my next question to you was, when Raw went off the air, we end with Braun through the table. They do the old Shield power bomb, triple power bomb through the table, the announcer's table. So my question was, okay, that was very heel-like. Are they heels because the question could be, they have built Braun to be such a monster. Him versus Roman, one-on-one, everybody might say Braun can take him, because every time they've wrestled, in the long run, Braun seems to get the better of him.
Braun was wearing out the Shield there for a while.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
So the numbers got over on him.
Is this reformation, and is this a heel turn for the Shield, quote unquote? By the way, this is going to sidetrack it like I'm bashing fans. I'm really not, but fans cheering for the heels and booing the baby faces or whatever, and everybody talking about, oh, they got to turn Roman heel. And I think it should be that way, but I don't think the fans let it happen that way anymore. Because, people are cheering this guy who's supposed to be a heel, which we'll get into in a minute. I mean, think about it. You heard the crowd at SummerSlam. They were cheering The Miz versus Daniel Bryan now. Does that mean Daniel Bryan's a shitty babyface? No, the fans won't let heels be heels and faces be faces anymore. So to say that, the Shield, are they a heel turn and they're going to no, Roman this Shield group's coming down. Are they going to protect Roman? Is he going to be a fighting champion, but he's not going to let people jump him from behind anymore? He's tired of getting the short end of the stick, so him and his brothers are going to stick together to protect each other's belts. Because, by the way, there is an Intercontinental Champion in the Shield, too.
So that's going to protect them from Dolph and that big Irish.
McIntyre, exactly. Yeah. It is McIntyre and Ziggler now. They're on the outside. Who knows? But that's my thing. Are they going to be the heels in the equation, and we're going to get Braun babyface versus heel Shield / Roman?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Never know. Just stuff, we put a poll up, as always, I always throw that kind of stuff up, but we want to know what your thoughts are on the Shield, Roman winning the title, Roman, this whole, are they heels? What are your thoughts? Real simple, DM us on Twitter @TappedOutPod. You can send us messages on Facebook to @TappedOutPod. And of course, as always, you can email us at tappedoutpod@gmail.com and share your thoughts and opinions there as well. Let's cover SummerSlam really quick, because we knew the show was going to run long. We're going to zip through some of these topics. First and foremost, I know the women's stuff is near and dear to your heart. So let's talk about we finally get the heel turn from Becky that everybody wants. Here's my thing. If everybody loves the heel turn, is she really becoming a heel? Because the fans went nuts when she turned heel. So isn't she just a babyface who does heel tactics?
I would have said she was a babyface if Charlotte had done such a phenomenal job at emoting and making you, see in her eyes after that turn. The way Charlotte looked, the look on her face, the confused and hurt. Nah, Charlotte's the babyface. Becky's the heel here. And, Becky was a fairly over babyface. They turned her when she was hot. So,
yeah,
good move. Solid move by everybody.
Somebody on Twitter, and I can't remember if it was you, let me know. I can't remember. Somebody put, is Charlotte nearing Roman status? Like, is she starting to get shoved down your throats to the point that everybody's now going to start resenting her like Roman and going to start, that's why they want Becky so much?
I don't really see it that way, but, maybe it was because Charlotte it's, I don't know, to me, more appealing than Roman. I don't have a problem with Charlotte, being in a bigger position. She's a phenomenal wrestler. Roman's a phenomenal wrestler. I don't know why it's hard for me to think of Charlotte shoved down my throat when I enjoy her work so much. And I think most people do.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I saw that tweet and it made me kind of chuckle and go like, there's some validity to that. If you believe Roman's being shoved down your throat, then Charlotte, multiple, what is she, a 7-time champion now or something?
Yeah, considering her tenure in the WWE, that's a lot of championships in that time. Because you remember there was that time a couple of years ago where her and Sasha were just at every pay-per-view.
Right, and that's, I get that, but I just kind of meant like that's what they're, Charlotte clearly is what they think is the future of, as far as wrestlers go. Your true wrestler, because let's go ahead and we can kind of flip if you want to the Raw side of that women's equation. Rousey, Ronda Rousey defeating, let's be honest with you, basically squashed Alexa Bliss for the women's title on, the Raw women's title.
The part where she sat down in the ring with her back to her so she would get in the ring and then let her put her into a chokehold and still whooped her ass was amazing. That just got me.
I was watching this match with my wife. She actually kind of watched this from time to time with me, and we were watching that match, and she just was like, "Oh my God, she looks like, it's like legit, like she thought she was hurting her, the way she was slinging her around, and she had not seen a lot of that stuff yet, and I just was like, the shit looks real, and maybe it's the old, Bruce Pritchard analogy, shit looks real because it is real."
Yeah. Looks stiff because it is stiff.
Yeah.
I'm not, gonna, give a warning and say, I think you ought to make her stop doing that arm drag. But when she arm drags those girls and slops them like that, it's almost like she snaps them and gets the momentum to a point where it's like she's going to just yank their arm right out of the socket. I'm surprised somebody hadn't lost a shoulder off of that.
If you watch this, it's the women selling it well. It took me a minute. I watched it twice during this match. I actually hit rewind for a second and watched them. Mm-hmm. I think it's just an easy selling move. They're flipping, like they're doing the work. They're doing the flip. So I think they're in total control of the flip. It just looks phenomenal the way it's done. So I think it just looks badass.
It's sold me, man, because it looks to me like she's going to just tear your arm right out of the socket.
Yeah, and I think the arm bar worked really well on Alexa Bliss. Her elbows are clearly, they're not completely double jointed, but you can tell. Our youngest one's arms does that. They do that. She's got the double jointed elbows, and they bend that funky way. And when I saw that, I was like, oh look, they're like Camille's elbows. They poke the wrong way. They're double jointed. And I said, so that makes it look even better when she had her in the arm bar. But I wanted to ask you this because, with Brock obviously losing the title at SummerSlam to Roman, I saw this and forgive me again, I can't remember who wrote this article. But the article led a great question. Is Ronda Rousey now the most important champion to the WWE?
Right now, yes, in my opinion. I would go 100% yes. Because she is the most recognizable name on the roster, regardless. She's the legit wrestler on the roster. She's incredibly believable. I think, and she's the most, she has the potential to draw the most money. Lesnar always drew a lot of money when he worked because he was Lesnar and he was legit and people believed it and people would pay to see that. And I think they've got that in Ronda now. So she's their hottest property.
I think because we're both in agreeance, which I know is not a word, but we always say this. Shout out to Coop on that one, right? And Billy. Are we in agreeance that, it's not that she's the greatest wrestler they have and that whatever, but it was kind of like Brock that let's be blunt. Seth Rollins is the Intercontinental Champion. Mm-hmm. Outside of the wrestling bubble, no one knows who Seth Rollins is. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. Kind of the same thing with Roman Reigns.
Yep. Outside
of the wrestling bubble, most people don't know who Roman Reigns is. Mm-hmm. Outside of the wrestling bubble, the world knows who Ronda Rousey is.
Yeah. See, I've got a girl that works with me who is a casual fan. She may watch one Raw a month, but she watches the Bellas. So she's a social, what I would call a social wrestling fan. And you may have to explain to her who Seth Rollins is, or you might have to talk to her about what's going on with this Dean Ambrose thing. But if you say names like Nikki Bella, Ronda Rousey, Dan Bryan, the names people identify with because they see them on television shows besides wrestling, they're a legitimate property that gets onto TMZ and they get onto websites and they get onto sports pages.
Yep.
John Cena. All these people. And when you've got somebody that's that recognizable where you don't have to explain who they're fighting with right now. You have to explain, well, the Ronda Rousey, no, sorry. You have to explain the Roman Reigns thing versus the Shield, and then they had this thing where Kevin Owens. No. These people have an outside name value that transcends who they're feuding with or what they're doing. And it's a big deal. And you can't buy that. I mean, you can with a lot of money, but you can't guarantee it's going to work. You know? You can't put a lot of money into somebody and expect that you're going to get it. You can't guarantee that kind of stuff. And they have it with Ronda Rousey, and they have to use her as much as possible. She's just that good.
Right.
She's just that notable.
She's
been on Sports Illustrated.
Well, she's been out. That was what we're saying. She's been around. I mean, the world knows who she is. It's not just the wrestling bubble. And here's the crazy thing. I put a poll up, matter of fact, right after maybe, asking about Ronda Rousey. I said, what's your thoughts on Ronda Rousey winning the Raw Women's Championship? And I put it was good. She's legit, or she wasn't ready. I just gave two answers to make it real simple. 63% of the people said good. She's legit. 37% of the people said she wasn't ready. So all that leads me to ask you, is that kind of the wrestling bubble? I mean, is Raw 37% diehard wrestling junkies who are stomping their feet that she doesn't deserve to be champion, and 67% are casual fans that actually the math's not that far off. If you take what a NXT, viewership is versus a Raw viewership, it almost kind of equates to that. So is 2/3 of the people who watch Raw casual wrestling fans?
That's a tough one.
I'm not saying it's an exact science. It's a question. And you can share your thoughts. Where can they share them at, Myron? What are the three places they can always share those?
You can find me at Myron the Mark TOP. You can send it to me at tap.wrestlingpodcast.com. Over there on the website, www.tap.wrestling. Okay.
TappedOutPod.com. Let's shorten it out for you. TappedOutPod.com, right?
It may be 10:30 to you, but it's dawn for me. Yeah, and get over there and hit me up, folks. Myron the Mark TOP. You can find me over on T.O. Myron Fancher over on Facebook. That's a really good approachable thing. I'm always talking to people over there.
Yep. So definitely, and always if you have any questions, tappedOutPod@gmail.com. Email us those there as well, because we're just kind of letting everybody know. We like to interact. I think that's one of our most fun things to do, man, is to get on there on Twitter and kind of go back and forth with people.
Definitely. Well, I got a question for you.
Fire away, bud.
Before we go any further. What in the hell is going on with Rousey's makeup?
Look, man, she's just into some different stuff, man. Don't hate. Let me tell you something. Hold on, time out. I'm going to cut you off because I live in a house with 3 women, and I just have learned I never question makeup. You know why? Because we're 2 fat guys and we're not hip. Maybe there's something there that we just ain't in on. It's something, it's a gimmick. It's it's something that's just like who knows? She's paying homage to something. I've learned on makeup. I don't question it. I just roll with it.
It looked like she was just kind of weird Broadway play about cats or some shit, man. I didn't that part. I don't think that makes it look legitimate. I think she should come out looking like she did when she went to MMA. She didn't put that stuff on when she worked MMA.
She wasn't a character in MMA. So I'm telling you, on the makeup thing, just let it roll, man. Chicks do crazy stuff with their makeup, and I'm just kind of like, you look great. Roll with it. I don't even fuss about makeup stuff, so.
I'm not fussing. I just don't understand it.
Dude, you're a dude. You're not supposed to understand it. If you understood it, I'd have questions.
Yeah, good point.
So we just gotta, I always tell people, just roll on. That's all I'm saying. Just roll on. The next thing I'm really worried is going to send me off on a tangent, because I do want to mention one other thing about SummerSlam. It's actually going to roll a whole bunch of stuff in. This is going to be our problem. The Miz versus Daniel Bryan match finally goes down, years in the making. You know, they build it, 8 years in the making or something like that, or 7 years in the making?
Yeah, something, yeah.
And we both, in the prediction show that we did over at our Patreon page, by the way, if you haven't been there yet, you can go over to Patreon it's at, Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, hunt us down. The link's on our Twitter page, Facebook page, everywhere. Just hunt it down. But it's also, if you go to tappedoutpod.com to our page, there's a link there at the bottom. It says support us on Patreon. If you click on that, it'll take you straight to the page. There's going to be some exclusive content, early content, all kinds of stuff coming on there. Definitely want to check it out. We did a SummerSlam preview show, which is kind of what I'm referencing to. And we both picked The Miz, and for this exact reason, because kind of it had to finish that way, right?
Yeah.
To further the story.
You couldn't go with anything else. In my opinion, there was absolutely no way to book that without The Miz going over, because you had to get some time out of it, and you couldn't just let Daniel Bryan win the first match. There's no time in that. Well,
if the babyface wins the first one, feud's over, right?
Yeah.
How do you progress? I mean, I do get the old school mentality. You can have the babyface go over and the heel attack him afterwards, get the heat, to kind of build something for later. I just felt like The Miz had to get the win the first time. And they did a great thing of it, sold the whole, the interference with Maurice handing him the weapon, so there was no weapon in the ring, and pulled that off phenomenal. And by the way,
yes.
Does that absolutely, that little promo afterwards, we totally scream, we're getting Maurice and The Miz versus Brie and Daniel Bryan at some point.
Eventually.
I'm thinking Survivor
that's going to have to happen.
I'm thinking Survivor or something down the road.
Yeah. I just don't know where Maurice is as far as her skill level. I haven't seen her do much lately, or anything lately.
Well, remember her and Miz did the Nikki John match at WrestleMania a couple years ago. Or, well, not a couple years ago, but you know what I mean, year and a half ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'm remembering that. That's the one that got Nikki and John married.
That didn't happen, though.
Oh, shit.
But I think that's where we're going to. And here's the irony of this whole thing. Here we are planning out like what's going to happen at, Hell in a Cell or Survivor Series. And guess what? Daniel Bryan's contract ends, right? We all hear he might show up at All In. He's not going to, by the way, because of it was actually scheduled. I think his contract was after the day, like the midnight before. There was so many loopholes. But the whole question has become, is Daniel Bryan going to be there beyond, September? So but Vince is pretty confident because he's booked him out. He's got him advertised for shows all the way into November. Okay.
Yep.
How does this happen? Well, Daniel Bryan is on Sky Sports the other night, and he says he's likely to resign with WWE. We all knew this was probably going to be the case anyway. But everybody's like, oh, what's taking so long? Well, lawyers are involved this time because now he's married. He's got a family. He's worried about dates.
Yeah, it's a much bigger deal.
Now it's about security. It's about dates he's got to perform. He wants to spend some time with his family. Obviously, he doesn't want a part-time schedule, but he doesn't want a full-time schedule, kind of that happy in the between. I get it. So it makes perfect sense. But then he also let something slip out that was kind of a crazy thing that I guess none of us have known. And he even alleged or, implied he didn't know. that he said that the WWE has an option clause for another year, kind of like we always call it the team option on a baseball or football contract, where they decide whether they want to pay him and keep him. And let's be blunt, if Vince is advertising you for November, I think that decision's already been made. I think they've already decided that if you don't sign the contract, we're going to renew you anyway for another year. So we have no qualms about advertising you for a show in November.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, Vince has this stuff planned out in advance.
Right. So
he's a step ahead. So
the question to you is, does it just not at this point behoove Daniel Bryan? Because if you tack another year on an age to him, I know everybody's like, oh, he could go to Ring of Honor. Okay, first of all, ain't nobody going to pay him what, Vince is going to pay him. Now, I know it's about days off or whatever, but if Vince can keep Brie Bella happy with the Total Bellas is running, he can keep Daniel Bryan in the fold, paying him what he still draws pretty well, obviously. The fans love it. The yes chant's huge. Mm-hmm. Daniel Bryan should just go ahead and sign this contract and just, because it's.
Here's a stack of money. Please take the stack of money. That's the way I look at it. And if he doesn't take the stack of money, I kind of question him.
I don't ever question somebody that's like, I'd rather spend more time with my family than take a huge payday. I get some of that, but if they already, my argument to that was if they are going to have the rights to keep him for another year, he's going to be a year older with another year's worth of bumps on his bump card. Just, but if you can sign a new deal and go ahead and lock up years 2 and 3 with that kind of money, you might as well. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to go anywhere else at that point.
It'd be worth saying. That's all I can tell you.
Because here's the thing. Those other promotions, New Japan, Ring of Honor, etc., would all, by the way, sign him even after that year. But with another year's worth of bumps on him, he's even more of a risk. You see what I'm saying?
He's not going to leave his beautiful wife and young daughter to go to Japan. That's just not going to happen.
It would take a Jericho deal for that to happen, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, but contrary to popular belief, I don't believe Daniel Bryan has the persona and the ability to pull off a Jericho thing. He's not the guy to do that.
Right.
He's a good wrestler and he's a good face, but he's not Jericho level.
Right.
Just can't be.
I agree with. There's some agreement to that. I will let you say. Speaking of Jericho, I wanted to run this by you too. I read he was on a podcast, or I think, it was on Jim Ross's podcast, I believe, recently. And he had mentioned that he had pitched the IWGP Intercontinental Champion versus the WWE Intercontinental Champion at SummerSlam. The pitch was essentially, everybody's like, well, you can't build that on Raw for weeks and weeks and weeks because you're basically, and he was like, you don't have to. Essentially, I think, obviously this was way out before SummerSlam, so they could get there. I'm thinking, they're going to get Rollins would somehow take the belt off of Ziggler before SummerSlam, which he did at SummerSlam. And then the Monday before, the go-home show for SummerSlam, Jericho comes out of the crowd, attacks Rollins, the Intercontinental Champion, puts a beat down on him, and then puts up a challenge. Intercontinental Champion versus Intercontinental Champion, IWGP versus WWE at SummerSlam. And by the way, when asked about it, he was like, do you think I would have pitched it if I didn't already have the okay for it? So clearly New Japan was going to let this fly.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty crazy, that this could have happened. And I guess WWE just wasn't really interested in it.
No, well, they don't need to be.
Oh, come on, man.
They'd be legitimizing New Japan. Now, I love the fact Chris Jericho is the messiah of modern day wrestling, going around and spreading the message of wrestling. And let's all work together. And guys, let's do something together and cooperate and promote all this together like we can. And it's good. He's the guy. He's the guy that's going to get us to where we see more cooperation from promotions. The guy that's going to get us to where we can see wrestlers crossing over. He's talking about doing Impact. I think Jericho is, to me, the future of wrestling. even though he's an older man, I think the future of wrestling has a lot to do with the way he's going to, just the way he's going to handle things over the next couple of years, because people are going to follow that. He's helping wrestling. I think it's tremendous.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I mean, I love the whole, looking at possibly doing some Impact stuff down the road. I know our buddy Lewis had a huge thing about it on the show this week, over at the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast. By the way, guys, don't forget, I know, Lewis has been gone for a little while. He was doing some moves. We had some issues. We had some family issues here we dealt with. He is back. He returned this week, covering Impact Wrestling. Make sure you head over to the feeds now, guys. We've talked about this in the last few weeks, but we got to remind you again. This week is not the last. There's one more week, and that's it. At the end of August, the feeds are no longer going to be, on one. They're all going to be on 3 separate feeds. So you do want to go to whatever your podcast player of choice is. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all of the Overcast, Player FM, TuneIn. You guys know them more than us.
And I really appreciate the people who went ahead and made the transition. Thank you. Thank you for cooperating with us. Thank you for trying this new thing we're doing. I really do appreciate you doing that for us.
Yeah, lots of people have already made the transition. We just want you to remember, in a couple weeks, the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast and the Gorilla Press will no longer be on this feed. So if you're subscribing on here, all that you're going to get going forward will be obviously the Tapped Out Wrestling podcast, and some interviews and stuff that we do. They'll be, the stuff that Myron and I do will be on this feed. Lewis's feed, the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast feed, will be over on another one, and the Gorilla Press with the Wrestling Dorks on another one. So make sure you're subscribing to all 3. And of course, last but not least, make sure you go, even on the new feeds, we've got a really good rating and review. We can always use more of those 5-star ratings reviews. So leave one here as well if you haven't. Yes. But even if you like the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast and the Gorilla Press, and you've given us a 5-star rating here for those shows, go to the new feeds and give them one as well. Kind of helps build those new feeds as well, kind of like you have ours here. So definitely want to check all those out. And kind of get caught up on Impact, the WWE, on those specific shows. But anywho, let's go. We're going to move on and say, we were kind of talking about a few things, about, working together. So I tell you, somebody who apparently did not want to work together really well. This is per Cody Rhodes. He has come out this week and said that, Matt Jackson had outright offered CM Punk a deal for All In, which kind of to me, a one-off, one-shot deal. It was it was a full-fledged offer. The money, the opponent was named, everything. Like, it was a full-fledged offer. Now, it's a twofold question. One, didn't Cody say they didn't want CM Punk there because they wanted it to be a total indie draw versus? So that kind of contradicts that statement, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. I don't have. Well,
I think that he probably did this after
the sellout.
All the thing was sold out, because it's sold out just about as fast as they booked the damn thing.
Which could be the case, which is why I was saying I wasn't really a big deal, because I figured that was probably exactly what happened. But the second part of that thing is so CM Punk says no. At this point, he was, by the way, at this point, I guess he had already probably lost his UFC fight. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know the timeline, so I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm assuming based on the timeline. So CM Punk's a no-go. I mean, he's out. Why? Is it maybe because of all the other stuff going on right now? The Colt Cabana lawsuit coming in, if it was because obviously that was probably before the Cabana lawsuit as well, which I'm going to ask you about in a minute. So what are your thoughts on CM Punk just saying, I don't want to be All In?
CM Punk is a spoiled, petulant child. He wants everybody to think about it and everybody to talk about it, but he's not going to do anything. He's not going to help. He's not going to give you anything to enjoy. People waste all their time stuck up CM Punk's ass, and it's why? He has not done anything for you, and God knows how long. His MMA matches were for him. He hasn't made it justified where you would be his fan. There's no reason to be a CM Punk fan. That's just all it is to it. I don't understand why people are still like the guy. He got into it with his best friend over money for a lawsuit he caused. He lost his best friend over this shit. And now he's going to not turn, I mean, he could have made enough money to cover that WWE lawsuit. The $500,000 he lost, I guarantee his ticket, his contract for All In would have been $500,000.
Oh, I totally disagree. I don't think they're paying that kind of money. I mean, I really don't. Not with the price of the tickets and the building and the Starcast. I think they could have made it worth his while. He could have done something the day of, like at Starcast. He could have done something like a signing, a meet and greet or something, made some money. But I don't think anybody's making that kind of money on that show. I don't even know that the Bucks and them are going to make that kind of money when they clear it all and pay everybody. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong, by the way. And you brought up something I wanted to ask you because, there was a rumor flying around on the internet about it this week. Did the WWE, did they play CM Punk? Because, the argument was they wanted, think about this, the whole involving Colt Cabana and the lawsuit, they weren't going to get anything of any substantial value out of Colt Cabana. And again, no disrespect to Colt. I mean, he doesn't have the money that Punk has.
He's a great podcaster. He's been great to the wrestling business, but he's not a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, he's the true pioneer. He's the original wrestling podcast. So all of us tip our caps to the guy. But now they're saying, did WWE manipulate the situation, bring him into the lawsuit to hopefully, to divide a wedge into these, to push a wedge between these two guys. And even though in the end, Punk won the lawsuit, did he lose the war? Because clearly now they've created an issue between Colt Cabana and CM Punk. Mm-hmm. So you lost that because he claims, Punk says he spent over $500,000 in lawyer's fees. And he's lost one of his best friends in wrestling. I think you lost, whether you won the lawsuit or not.
I think he's going to continue to just isolate people until he has nothing, but maybe AJ Lee's going to stay with him. He's not going to have any product he can sell, for lack of a better way to put it. His self as a character, being I'm the guy who does it all. I'm the one man that's just stood up against wrestling. That's eventually not going to pay you. You're going to have to figure out a way to start picking up a little cash on the side here somewhere.
Well, I don't dog him on this, man. Look, he did some Marvel comic stuff. I mean, he's got other things in his life. He saved his money. I mean, supposedly. So, I mean, kudos to that. I mean, I don't dislike the guy. I just have always said I'm in the opinion of, I don't know that he likes wrestling anymore. I think he was maybe burned out and he doesn't want anything to do with it. And again, not with any hate in my heart or head. I'm just saying that if he's moved on beyond wrestling, it's time for wrestling fans to move on beyond him.
Yes. Forget about this guy. Just let him. I mean, he's got go away heat now.
With you, he's got go away heat. With me, I'm just like, it's just, all right. He was a very good wrestler. I don't think he was one of the greatest ones of all time. We've had this conversation before in the past. Yeah. So he's retired, he's moved on, and I can look back and say like, oh, that was a good match, or that was a good match, or that was a good promo, blah, blah, blah. But there's no, to stand there and scream, CM Punk in matches when he's not coming back.
He's not even watching you chant for him.
No.
Okay. He's not even seeing this.
And by the way, we don't want to see you chant for him. Anyway, that's a whole different argument. I don't like watching him.
I don't want to hear it. You both suck. You both suck during Roman and Brock. Didn't need to hear that. There was no need for that.
I don't have a problem with, again, with certain fans. I just get when the hypocrisy of they chanted, you both suck during that match. But during, I don't know if you caught this, on Raw, the Revival wrestled the B team, and the diehard internet fans say the Revival's the team that should be champions. They're the ones that everybody's invested in. And during that match, they were doing the wave. So you showed and I didn't tweet it. I almost did. I was like, the disinterest you showed in that match tells Vince you don't care. You'd rather be doing the wave than, being invested in a Revival match. And everybody's like, well, it's the way they're booked. they're booked because you gave him the reaction of you don't care. You're disinterested in it.
Folks, you're not outsmart Vince. He watches everything you do. He's like Santa Claus. And you may think he's old and irrelevant, but that man watches his product and he takes people's reactions and he builds based on that. So you can't fool him. You can't do this kind of stuff because he's going to book it like the old days. Well, I don't, people are like, well, that's my disinterest shows that I was, no, Vince is going to look at your disinterest like you don't want to see that. And if you don't want to see that, Vince is he ain't going to do it. Come on, folks. Pay attention to what you're doing. Watch wrestling. Why the hell would you pay that much money to go to a show and fuck off? Watch the wrestling.
I'm not throwing money away because, I want to see, if I'm paying to go see a show, I want to see what I want to see. And I'll tell you something I do want to see. We've hyped this. God, this has been going, how long has this Rey Mysterio talk been going on?
It's hard to say, man, because
months.
It's almost like to the point when he was, with WCW. It's like, okay, well, what is he doing? He jumped to WWE.
Finally, right?
Yeah. So is this going to be his last big jump?
Well, that's all the talk has always been, and we've covered this ad nauseum in the past, so we're not going to cover some of that, like, is he going to retire there, all that kind of stuff. The news finally is coming out that Northeast Wrestling, which is a pretty big indie show up in the Northeast United States, has pulled Rey Mysterio for a show that he was supposed to do August 24th due to contractual issues.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, of course, immediately leans into that's the WWE. I find that odd because WWE typically lets people they sign fulfill their indie booking dates. They pretty much always have. But then on top of that, if he's at All In and they let him do that show, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. The only argument would be they're just like, we get All In's a big deal and you're going to fulfill that promise, but maybe they just said Northeast Wrestling's not worth getting hurt.
Yeah.
Because maybe
that's what I would have to say too. That's the only way I can figure that out.
Maybe they're worried he's going to pull a riddle and shave the tip of his finger off or something in the middle of a match. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's finally happening. It looks like after All In, Rey Mysterio is going to show up, finally have his last run, finish out his career maybe in WWE, get his son in the promotion. Everybody knows that's kind of the reason.
Yeah.
Get his kid there, and get him into the system, which would be awesome. Because, where's the system at? It's down in NXT, right? If he can get his kid down there in NXT, he's got huge potential, because the NXT's doing stuff like let's go ahead and talk about this real briefly. We're running out of time here quickly. NXT TakeOver happens on Saturday, and of course everybody talks about how it was the best pay-per-view of the weekend. Hands down, it was the best wrestling, card of the show, of the whole SummerSlam weekend. We got some good matches. Overall, okay, first of all, I'm going to ask you, was it Ciampa and Gargano? Was it Ricochet and Adam Cole? Was it, the women's match, or was it Velveteen and EC3? Kind of, did you have one that stuck out to you overall?
I just liked them all. I enjoy it because it's good quality wrestling. I don't really, it doesn't stick with me, for lack of a better way to put it. It's not like, to keep saying, it's not presented the same way. Where on the big shows, on the WWE, you see memories and moments.
Right.
And
that was going to be
earlier.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
You
that's
see
the question.
matches.
Is the best wrestling matches, do they occur on NXT and WWE is built for memories? Like the WrestleMania moments, as they like to call them, is Vince creating moments and NXT's creating the best matches. So they're appealing to both crowds. You're getting both.
That's the only way I see it. That's the only way I can understand it. If I know they're teaching them how to become the people that go up there and do the big stuff, but they are really, really putting out fundamentally sound matches that are just wrestling matches. And it's believable. They present it like a competition. And I really think that's good. It's good for business for them. It's not what's going to play up in New York, though.
Well, I'm going to ask you a silly question, man.
What's that?
Triple H made a comment this past weekend about NXT TakeOver. He said, "We are clearly no longer developmental. We are clearly a third brand at this point." With the Fox deal that we've heard of rumors about, potentially wanting more content. What if NXT ends up on like Fox Sports 1 as a third brand? And if they start getting a little more cash out of this, they're going to be able to pay guys because then it's not really a demotion or it's not the developmental territory. It's like, guys, we need the best wrestlers in the world to be on NXT because that's where the wrestling's at. SmackDown and Raw.
I think that's incredibly plausible that could happen. I mean, with all the time they've retained, unless after SmackDown tonight we start seeing some big layoffs, I would wager that is a possibility, that they're going to need more talent to run a third.
That's my argument.
People would love to see it.
They brought in guys like, Matt Riddle debuted at NXT as far as in the crowd. I mean, they kind of showed him off. And you're thinking, okay, is this what they're building? Because, what do we, I say we, what do a lot of internet fans complain about? Guys get called up from NXT and they're not used correctly, quote unquote. We're going to save that. You know what? That's going to be a Patreon exclusive. If you go over to patreon.com / Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, I'm telling you, I'm going to cut a whole show on this about you deserve it, and blah blah blah. That's going to be a whole show that I think we can go on for probably a good half an hour, maybe longer on it.
Yeah, it might be a little too hot for the internet.
Yeah, it will definitely be hot. There's going to be language on there. I'm just telling you. So
if we put it on Patreon, though, it'll be a little bit because people have to pay to see it. It won't go out to the masses. It'll just be people that want to hear.
Exactly.
I know you're tired of that shit, and I'm tired of that shit. And I think your real wrestling fans don't understand that.
No,
they don't understand that there's people that go around saying, "Well, you're not Bill. You didn't book him correctly. They're wasting his talent."
Let's don't waste it. That's going to be a Patreon. We're going to get it up either this week or next week. Keep an eye out for it. So follow us over there. Lots of free content, by the way.
Hey, fans, you deserve it.
Exactly. So Matt Riddle shows up real quick. I want to cover that. One of the things that was interesting, his wife apparently said, that the offer came after he was offered a deal with New Japan. Apparently New Japan made an offer. He called Gabe Sapolsky with Evolve because he works for Evolve and, mentioned it to him. And then bam, magically an offer gets called in from the WWE. There's conversation, bam, and he signed. Are they spitefully, because everybody of course says they're spitefully taking talent away from New Japan to keep them from growing. What's your thoughts on that?
That's, to me, that's an asset. Riddle's an asset. They took Riddle out of the picture for New Japan to be able to sign. So they didn't get him because we've both seen him. He's going to be money for somebody one day. Fans are going to love the guy. He's charismatic. He's the bro. He's the great guy, the buddy. And he's a phenomenal wrestler. And any other company would look at it like an asset acquisition to keep him away from another, say he was the best NASCAR driver and one team signed him to keep him from signing with the other team. Even if that wasn't their main plan, they just kept him from giving the other team an advantage. And that's what they did. They are preventing Matt Riddle from giving New Japan an advantage over Vince.
Or it could be what we literally just had a conversation, right? That people, if they're building a third brand, I hate to tell you, Matt Riddle's a pretty good guy to sign up for that brand.
Yeah.
That's just totally my opinion.
You could build a promotion around him. Him and Keith Lee, the new faces of NXT, I couldn't say how excited I'd be to see those two again. That's too good.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, it's all about the brand, man. If they're building a third brand, totally get that what they're going into. NXT, man, look for it. Who knows? Maybe it is a Fox Sports product that down the road, it's not just a, WWE Network, product anymore.
Yeah.
Get more eyes on that
believe
product.
It'll sell on a bigger scale.
Well, I will tell you this. Let's, and then we're going to move on pretty quick after this because there's just a couple more topics I want to cover, and we're already knocking on the 1 hour mark, which is kind of like our wall. NXT being put on even Fox Sports 1, it's a bigger audience than what they get on, on the network. But one of the challenges that I always feel like NXT stars who get called up, we've covered this in the past, so we're not going to do it a long form here. The casual fan that we've always talked about that watch Raw and SmackDown don't know who these guys are when they come up sometimes.
Yeah.
So putting them on a Fox Sports 1, even if you're quasi still using it as it's a brand, but you're using it as developmental territory for them, more people are going to know who they are when they get there to Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah.
So the transition smoother and easier?
It might even be seamless.
So that's my point, is you can still say, they're getting called up to the big show with Raw and SmackDown or whatever. But in my opinion, I think it kind of starts opening a little more, to who they are and stuff like that. And by the way, a 1 hour NXT program on a Fox Sports 1, love it.
The ratings will be through the roof.
It's what every wrestling fan wants, man. It's that 1 hour window. So let's go ahead and jump on, man. Talk about there's a little Impact news this week as well that we wanted to talk about. Impact Wrestling, man, is they've done some really cool things. Conrad, by the way, really put over their Canadian studio where they were shooting the shows. He told Bischoff on this week's 83 Weeks that Bischoff had to go watch Impact Wrestling because he needed to see that studio because he absolutely loves it.
Wow.
Yeah, and so Bischoff was like, I'll check it out. 'Cause Bischoff was like, I haven't watched TNA since I left. And, he's like, well, it's Impact, Myron. And he's like, but yes, anyway. But the cool thing is now they're even going to venture out, man. They're going to Mexico.
Yeah.
And they're going to do some tapings down there.
Man.
I will tell you this. Those fans will go nuts for it.
Oh, yeah. And you're going to get some hot fans. You're going to get a massive crowd. Because, have you seen some of the arenas they run triple in? They look like Roman Coliseums. It's basically all seats straight up, just so they can pack as many people crazy into those venues. Yeah, this will be good. It will make them look better. I'm not saying they look bad, but they will make them look much better in front of all those crazy crowds and the excitement and the quality of wrestlers they're going to be able to bring in.
Well, yeah, they've got this deal. They're already working with Lucha Underground, so they're going to be able to. I would almost guarantee you money. They're going to bring in some Lucha Underground people, and kind of get that. Yeah. People are familiar with. Don't be shocked if Phoenix and Pentagon, all these whatever are kind of popping in during that run because that'll even fire up that crowd even more. And the crowd, that's what they've been doing a good job is getting a better crowd reaction. If you're sleeping on Impact lately. I mean, you're really sleeping on Impact because the show has gotten better. I know the viewership is what it is, and I hate to go on that Bischoff rant about ratings. About sometimes it takes a minute to turn it around. The Titanic doesn't turn on a dime, and I don't mean I don't mean to give that analogy of Impact being the Titanic, but it's going to take a minute to turn that ship to right the ship, right? And
they're getting there. They're in the right direction. That's what I love about it.
Oh, yeah.
They are actually in the right direction to be able to get this thing going.
I 100% agree with you on that one. They're doing the right things. I think this thing to Mexico, bringing in maybe some Lucha stars, I think could do wonders for them. But I love the fact that they're not just taping, in one place, that they're bouncing from Canada. Maybe, I don't know what they're going to do in the U.S. anymore. But they're, obviously going down to Mexico now. Who knows? Maybe before you know it, they hop back across the pond and they record in the UK again. Like they were doing some stuff over there before. And definitely check them out. And of course, if you're a huge Impact Wrestling fan, we cover it briefly here. If you're looking for more in depth, check out again the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast. Comes out, on Sundays typically, probably more like Mondays most of the time, but we like to do it on Sundays. Check the schedule out on tappedoutpod.com. The schedule there every week is right there on the front page. But also make sure you go to the tab that says Pro Wrestling Personified Podcast and click on there. Subscribe there on iTunes. Like we said, iTunes, Google Play, all your favorite podcasts, because the feeds will be separated by the end of the month. And we don't want you to miss any of the Impact coverage, amongst the interviews and other things that Lewis does as well. And by the way, he also has a Patreon page, which you can click on that same tappedoutpod.com page for the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast. He does a lot of cool things on his Patreon. Like there's a thing that we just released one Tuesday.
That's super cool.
Yeah, the old school memories. He likes to do those little walk down memory lanes. He's going to have interviews where you get interviews early. Kind of one of the things we're trying to do on our Patreon page is all of our Patreon paid members will get interviews early before they release, or we hate to tell you, some are going to be exclusive to the Patreon page. So you would have, members get those exclusively as well as extra bonus content. So definitely want to check them out, and the Gorilla Press as well on their Patreon page. Become a member. And by the way, shoot us some emails. Send it to tappedoutpod@gmail.com. You can DM us at tappedoutpod or whatever, and let us know other things you'd like to see on the Patreon pages. We'd love to get you more content. That's kind of a big thing. Hey, before we get out of here, I know you had a thing you wanted to talk about. There was something missing from all of this weekend with Raw and with of course, SummerSlam. Matt Hardy not in the Matt Hardy not in the ring. Let me back up. He was apparently in the building.
Yes, Matt was in the building. He was not in the ring. He was in the back producing, and his wife has been saying he's in a transitional phase right now. There's only pretty much how many bumps he can take, and there's life after wrestling. And I really think that Matt is at a point where maybe doing something backstage is appealing to him. How many beatings can you take up? How long can he continue to do that? Would you rather see him once a year, or would you rather see him in his career early?
Well, I totally agree. He's if he was involved in, I don't know what he was in as far as production wise, to know how good he was or how it went or whatever. But here's my thing. I know JR put a shout out to on Twitter as well. The bump at SummerSlam, Jeff Hardy took onto the apron, unnecessary, doesn't need to happen, especially to somebody their age. That's does Matt get it? And he's getting out while he still can. And is Hardy going to continue just to do worse damage? Jeff, is he going to do worse damage?
Jeff's going to kill himself in the ring. That's just all they're doing. And he's crazy.
Yeah, Jeff's going to go until the body just physically breaks, I think, and just can't go anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
and Matt backstage would be phenomenal. Okay. That guy, he showed so much creativity with the whole, Broken Universe thing over at, Impact. Getting that guy backstage, I think, would be dynamite.
He's done nothing but wrestling for the last 25, 26 years of his life. Rebby says it's time for maybe to move on. And Mark Henry, they were on Busted Open Radio, and she made, Mark Henry made the comments of, there is life after wrestling. She agreed and said hopefully he'll listen to somebody like Mark, and, move on and maybe, cause it is. I mean, his body's going to take a toll. It's going to take a toll on his body for sure.
Yeah.
But, hopefully that doesn't, hopefully he'll learn. Yeah.
I like to see my heroes alive and maybe working an occasional show more than I would like to see them crippled and dead.
Right. We like to, a lot of the guys are starting really young now. And we want them to, take care of their bodies. They can last longer. And then when they leave, they're in good shape. Speaking of young stars, I wanted to promote out, today. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, on Tuesday, yesterday, we did release the episode. It was a Patreon early exclusive, with interview with Alan Angels, indie superstar down here in the, Georgia Southeast area. He's starting to get really huge, and the guy's super young. He's 20. He's been doing this for 2 years, and he's 20. I mean, so when he was 18, boom, he went in.
He's exciting, guys. He's one of those people I have to say is exciting. Every time you see him, he does something better.
Yep. 100% agree. So definitely check out that interview. Our old boy that I'm talking to now, Myron, did this interview. We put it up last week on the Patreon page for early exclusive. And speaking of which, shout out to, I know we got a message from, we follow, one of our buddies on there on Facebook and Twitter, Mr. Alan Tucker. Shout out to him for being a paid member over at the Patreon page. Yes. And it was all because he wanted to hear the Alan Angels interview early, right? So, definitely, we appreciate the support. And, Alan's a great guy, does a lot of sharing and retweeting, putting our stuff out there. follows a lot of local wrestling. We see him at a lot of shows. So shout out to our buddy Alan Tucker over.
That guy probably gets more shows than anyone I know.
He should be doing a podcast. That's what we joke about. Yep. It's like he should be doing a podcast. He sees so much wrestling, and he knows a lot of the guys. So yeah, he definitely. There you go. Maybe Alan's one we need to get to do a podcast, right? But anyway, man, I mean, we've covered a whole lot of stuff here. We, went over a little bit. It happens. Did I miss anything on your notes, man, or before we?
No. I did pretty good on my notes. I would, just ask, that Hulk Hogan keep his mouth shut and fade away, like, quiet, so he doesn't ruin the rest of my childhood with his ego and racism and stupidity. But that's it. That's all I got to say.
Well, you want to share any thoughts, any opinions with us? Obviously, we've already told you. You can find Myron over at Myron the Mark TOP on the Twitter. I'm Tapped Out Nick on Twitter. Of course, on Facebook, we're simple to find. It's basically TO for Tapped Out, TO Myron Fancher, TO Nick McDaniel. You can find us both there. And of course, the at Tapped Out Pod is Facebook, at Tapped Out Pod is Twitter. It is at Tapped Out Pod at Instagram. I mean, we tried to make it simple for you guys. Website, tappedoutpod.com. Emails, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. One simple thing to remember for finding us all everywhere. Make sure you find us on there. Interact with us. Follow us on all the social media places. Go to this, subscribe to us. Remember, all 3 shows are going to be on separate feeds in a matter of 2 weeks. The Pro Wrestling Personified Podcast, the Gorilla Press, and of course this one that you're already probably subscribed to at Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast.
Yep.
Do those. And of course, hey, lots of stuff on the Patreon pages. Again, they're on the website if you need the link. But of course, we always put them on our Twitter and Facebook page as well. So check those out as well for us. And hey, there's free stuff, man. All of the shows are on there for free. But of course, that even for as little as $1, you can join in. The tiers are there. You'll get some really cool stuff. If you go high enough, you're going to get things like T-shirts. There's a chance to be a co-host of a show. There's a chance to be, all kinds of stuff on there. So check them out. Again, Patreon, and that's all 3 shows. Check them out. Patreon, Pro Wrestling Personified Podcast, Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, the Gorilla Press. Check them all out. Man, that's everything I think I've got. Am I missing anything? Oh, yeah. ProWrestlingTees.com. You can go buy a shirt and support the show as well. That's kind of everything I've got, man. You got anything else, Myron?
Man, you did a good job with that one because you got past about 4 things I've forgotten. So, you can't beat that. That's all I got. I'm glad to be here today. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for helping us over on the Patreon. And I think it's time to tap out.